Look at this chart of global populations. That massive spike highlights a reality. By 2050, 1 in 4 people on Earth will be African. But the machinery to harness this is broken. Traditional scholarships extract minds into Western networks, and boot camps isolate learners behind screens. To understand the gap, picture 3 specific individuals. First, Amira in Kano, hitting an artificial ceiling in her local ecosystem. Second, Kwame in Accra, holding massive ambition but zero pathways to scale a business continent-wide. And finally, David in Birmingham, holding an African passport and a British degree, completely unserved by the networks of either world. Producing world-class talent is meaningless if the infrastructure to route them into connected, pan-African roles doesn't exist. The continent's talent crisis is a routing problem, not a supply problem. This diagram outlines the African Futures Exchange, a continuous routing system. It starts in the center with Module 1, a physical expedition. Trust is formed in rooms. Notice how this physical core then feeds outward into persistent digital environments, ensuring connections survive. Getting into this system requires navigating a selection process built on a concept called engineered diversity. Left to market forces, any application process defaults to the same wealthy urban hubs and elite schools. To prevent elite capture, AFX relies on hard mathematical quotas. There is a 60% floor for continental Africans and a 40% diaspora ceiling. A strict 15% nationality cap ensures no single country can dominate, artificially forcing the generative tension required for problem solving. These artificial limits are not political concessions. They are the strict mechanical requirements for building a genuinely pan-African network rather than a localized elite club. Flying hundreds of people across borders, housing them, and staffing bespoke career placement teams requires an enormous amount of capital. But relying on traditional philanthropy just breeds institutional dependency. So the system targets high net worth individuals, like a billionaire telecom magnate. Typically, a charity might ask this donor for a gift of private company shares. But as this animation shows, handing over private equity is like chopping off a branch. The foundation is left holding a dead, illiquid minority asset that requires expensive annual valuations, generating zero actual cash to run the program. AFX completely bypasses this friction using a dividend pledge. Instead of transferring debt equity, the donor signs a legal commitment to route a percentage of their annual personal cash dividends directly to the system. The tree stays intact, and the foundation receives highly liquid, immediately usable cash flow. Looking at the central killer here, you can trace how this dividend path directly funds scholarships and operations. Mechanically, the more profitable the donor's private company becomes, the more cash flows into the talent pipeline. This specific capital architecture transforms wealthy donors from passive, sentimental patrons into deeply invested principals. Their financial success and the system's survival are structurally bound together. To ensure long-term survival, the system needs market revenue. This diagram highlights placement commissions. Multinational employers partner with AFX, paying a 10 to 15% headhunter fee whenever they hire one of these battle-tested graduates. This provides a massive, scalable revenue engine. But this introduces a massive structural vulnerability. What happens if a billionaire donor demands to skip the line and hire the absolute best talent for their own company? And simultaneously, what if an accident at a local networking event triggers a massive lawsuit against the organization? How do you protect the talent pool's integrity while shielding the donor's capital? The system builders solve this with a dual-entity legal structure. They physically separate the organization into 2 halves. On the left is the foundation, a tax-exempt vault that solely holds the donor assets and funds scholarships. On the right is the program, a dynamic operating engine that manages the students, runs the physical events, and assumes all the corporate liability. Notice this central shield, labeled the non-negotiable structural separation. Because the placement decisions are managed entirely by the program staff on the right side of the wall, the foundation trustees holding the money on the left have zero authority over where the students are hired. The firewall guarantees that a billionaire's money buys broad ecosystem health, ensuring AFX remains a meritocracy rather than an exclusive corporate recruiting agency. Everything we've covered forms one continuous, self-sustaining loop. The donors provide the bedrock dividend capital, The talent is routed and trained through the physical and digital modules. The corporate partners hire that talent and pay a placement commission, and that commission scales the entire infrastructure. This matrix summarizes the mechanics. Talent is selected via strict demographic caps and measured purely by career placement. Capital is secured cleanly through liquid dividend pledges. Market demand fuels a 15% commission revenue engine, and the entire system is protected by a dual-entity liability wall. AFX addresses the talent crisis by treating it as a routing problem rather than a shortage of potential. By year 5, this model targets a 75% placement rate and nearly $2 million in annual revenue, providing a self-sustaining infrastructure for a new generation of leadership.